3, 2, 1, and hey everybody, welcome to the cast. Just get right to the point here. Today's topics are remade movies. So we came up with this idea that we are going to, each person picked a movie that was remade, and so we will be just compare and contrast each person's pick. So let's just get right to it. Randy, take it away.
Yeah, so for this week on the podcast, my first pick of the remade movies I picked was Bad News Bears. Start off, I'll go do with the original one, which was made in 1976. Star character was Walter Matthau, and pretty much the whole story and premises of this movie was it's based off a coach that is taking over not a minor league baseball team, but
a team of misfits, essentially.
Yeah, they're a little league. Sorry, I couldn't figure out the damn word. A little league baseball team, right? And he pretty much is asked to do this because pretty much what happens is at the beginning of the movie...
There's not much of a difference in Puerto Rico, minor league and little league.
Yeah, and the city councilman originally in the movie, his son is wants to play in the little league, pretty much league, and he can't because he's terrible at baseball. So he goes in with his attorney and pretty much tries to sue the league, and the league says, okay, you can put your baseball team into the conference or division or whatever you want to call it. And what ends up happening is they have a coach on there who is just terrible. He doesn't know anything about baseball, and he can't coach these kids because they're pretty much uncoachable. So they hire in Walter Matthau.
Because these are... I'm not trying to be whatever, but street kids, little rapscallions.
Yeah,
they're just
more,
hard to deal with.
Yeah, they're more of the troublemaker kids, or the kids that aren't really athletic, that don't really, play sports.
Did they ever make a point out of saying that they were the poor kids, or these were just troubled kids?
I think it was more they don't really say it, but I think
it's implied.
It's implied that all some of these other kids are less fortunate, and you can tell when they start playing against the other teams that these kids actually have
good equipment versus
exactly.
Yeah. They don't have a good uniform. They're just wearing T-shirts and shit out there, bare bones kind of team.
Yeah, so pretty much, they hire Buttermaker, who's Walter Matthau, and he was a minor league baseball player, and he's now ex-minor league, of course, and he's a pool cleaner / alcoholic, and pretty much, hates his life.
He puts that on his resume.
Yeah. So they asked him to actually take over the baseball team since he has baseball experience, and come to find out, he goes to the first practice, and he realizes none of these kids even have played baseball before, let alone if they even know what a baseball is and how to play baseball.
So, sorry to stop you, but so how did they even organize it?
How they organize the team?
If none of these kids have played baseball before.
Well, that was what happened. The guy from the councilman, he's like, I got a group of kids that they all want to play baseball.
Troubled youth.
Yeah, and his son was one a part of them, and his friend,
okay,
so he put a part of them, and this is how they recruited everybody.
Okay.
So what ended up happening is Buttermaker goes, he does practice with them, and pretty much they're uncoachable. So he goes out to recruit people, which one person is his daughter at first, who he had a kid with his girlfriend, and they're no longer together, but he still sees his kid, which is
So is it a strained relationship? Are they on good terms, or
it's a strange relationship?
It's a strained.
Yeah, it's a very strange relationship, and his daughter actually has to make up terms and says I'll pitch and play for your team if you take me shopping and pay for my tumbling classes or whatever the hell she does, ballet or
so
something.
he's kind of I don't want to.
Is he
a deadbeat dad?
He's a deadbeat
dad.
He's an alcoholic, and she knows it.
And he has to.
But the one thing he did do before he became a big piece of shit and not part of life was he always taught her baseball and taught her how to pitch and stuff.
Back before the alcohol really took hold.
Yeah, or he was already taken over. So, so she kind of says no, I don't pitch anymore. When she comes to see him, come to find out that she secretly has been pitching and still practices baseball, and she's just not letting Buttermaker know. And I think her name was Amanda in the movie. And
it was played by Tatum O'Neal, correct?
If I remember, yes, it was Tatum O'Neal. So, yeah, Amanda, I can't remember her fucking last name, Witzler, whatever, doesn't matter.
Whatever.
So she gets on the team. she comes to find out, and they're all stunned that, like, the guys are like, girls don't play baseball pretty much, and they watch her pitch, and they're like, wow, she's amazing pretty much. So they go into the season, and she's the only one that actually can play the game, right? Everybody in the team, they argue, they get in arguments, and like they're playing the game. Like I remember, like a base hit goes by somebody, and since he doesn't, I can't remember the guy at second base, but since he doesn't even know how to really catch or do anything, and the guy's going by and he just trips him and tries to kick his ass because he couldn't catch the ball. So Buttermaker, he still gets fed up with them, and then from there he recruits Kelly Leak, who's the town neighborhood badass that rides around on his motorcycle, and he's supposed to be the best baseball player around town. So
Yeah, we had one of these around here in St. Charles.
yeah, what was his name?
Redacted.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
I don't want him to find out, man.
So he ends up recruiting the kid. They actually start winning. They get this Kelly kid on the team, and Buttermaker comes to a point where he just realizes like these kids are worthless, and he's not going to win with them. So he's relying on his daughter and Kelly to pretty much win them baseball. And he does that by he tells Kelly like, when a base hit or a pop flies hit out in the center field, like no matter where it is on the field, you have to run out and catch it because these kids can't catch.
Because then don't the kids catch on? Because I'm sorry, guys. So I hadn't seen this movie since I was real little. But does the team start catching on and getting pissed off because they realize that it's just like the ringers are the ones playing? Right.
Yeah,
like that
pretty
goes
much
against the whole point of
correct. Pretty much,
it's baseball's a team sport.
Yeah, they realize that he is pretty much pretty much telling them and blowing smoke up their ass. They're out there playing, but really at the end of the day, like the kids figure out after Kelly's running around catching balls and making all the plays, and so is the daughter, that they pretty much there's no trust in the team and they don't want to play anymore. So after that, I think I don't want to play anymore. he comes to terms with them and lets them actually start playing because they start playing better as a team, and
because they actually just started getting better once they started actually practicing.
Yeah, and then he ends up getting them actually sponsored, right? So, like, at the time, like we talked earlier, they don't have any jerseys or any real equipment. They get sponsored by some local bar he goes to, which is, I don't remember if it's a titty bar or whatever, and he gets sponsored by them. And pretty much after that, they become, like, more of a uniform, like, team. So they become better, they play better, and they end up playing their arch nemesis, which is the Yankees, which is one of the teams they play at the beginning of the league. And they get their ass kicked.
I mean, isn't that just a classic baseball movie trope? It's just like you play your arch nemesis early on and get you the shit kicked out of you.
Yeah, it's all the kids that make fun of him at school, and they don't like him, the bully kids or whatever.
Yeah, it's like,
it's really the hero's journey, essentially. Like, it follows the same arc, where, they're at their lowest point and have to, like, work their way back to win the day or whatever.
Redemption.
Yeah, so
exactly.
So it goes on
playing against the rich kids camp.
Yeah, so pretty much it goes on, and they get to the championship game, and it's I think the guy who's the coach, if I remember his name, was what was his name? I can't remember. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. But it was Roy Turner was the coach of the Yankees. Is the guy that Buttermaker and him always have a pissing contest and argue back and forth. He tells him he's a drunk and he's nobody.
What a great name though, Buttermaker. And I love how they all call him Buttermaker.
It's it is funny. It's catchy too for the movie and everything, right?
Yeah. Buttermaker.
They go to the championship game, and of course it's like a close game at the beginning, and I remember that the coaches gets in an argument with the son because the son's a pitcher on the team, and pretty much what happens is like he goes out there and tells him not to pitch against Engelbert, who's like the fat catcher kid on their team, and tells him don't pitch against him because if you do, he's going to get a hit. Just walk him. And then the kid's like, no, I'm not doing that. So he slaps him in the face in front of like his all the parents and all the shit, and like tells him, don't back talk me and do what you're gonna do. So he pitches it anyway to Engelbert and hits a ground ball right to him. Well, he takes the ground ball, holds it, and pretty much lets Engelbert get an inside park with the home run and like tie up the game like it was a huge point. And then he just takes the ball, walks off the field, drops it in front of his dad, and just leaves. And I guess him and his mom just like leave the game, pretty much telling his dad, pretty much fuck you. And after he did that,
well, yeah, it was back when you could hit your kids.
Yeah, it's back when you could hit.
Because this was from the 70s, right? Or was this the early 80s?
It was 1976 when this movie came out.
So you slapped the shit out of your kid in front of everybody on the baseball field.
That was just normal.
Everybody would be like, yeah, little shithead kid.
So I remember that part. It's like a crucial part in the movie. And then, of course, after that happens, it's like Buttermaker has like an epiphany and is like figures out, it's like, you know what? I don't want to be that guy. Like, we're both very competitive, and he's just worried about winning. He finally like realizes like this is about the kids. So he lets all the other kids that he doesn't let play on the bench go out there and play. They end up losing the game, but he feels better at the end of the day. He's like, you know what? You know, they're great kids and they can play baseball just because they're, you know, might be like the nerdy kids or the dorky kids or the poor kids that they can still play baseball like anybody else. So, and I think at the end, like all the kids, like they like, you know, go to shake their hands, and the other team's like, you guys are really good. You have a lot of guts. And the kid's like, you know what? You can take that trophy and shove it up your ass.
Wasn't it the little mouthy one who said that?
The kid that plays shortstop.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name at the time, but he tells him, shove the trophy up his ass, like we're going to win it next year. And then like they start celebrating like they won the fucking tournament. And like Buttermaker gives them like all beers and stuff, I think, or something like that. Then something like that. And then like the movie's over after that, right? And then it's a great movie. It's a great. I love Walter Matthau, even though I haven't seen, you know, tons of his movies. Like it's one of the movies that I remember seeing with my dad when I was a kid. I was like, this guy is hilarious. You know, typical asshole alcoholic person. It seems like he plays that role in a lot of his movies. Like really.
Well, dude, I saw this originally back when I was a kid because for a while I guess HBO had the rights and they would play it a lot. And I remember I used to. I watched this movie like 10 times. I was like so young, so I forgot so much about it. It makes me now after talking about it, really need to start rewatch these things before the casts. Yeah. But regardless though, it makes me want to go. It makes me want to go back and watch it just because I do remember parts of it now where it's like it was a funny ass movie. And it was just like, and yeah, you know, I think it's a movie that dated well. I don't want to like get hung up on that because I know in previous ones I'm always like, oh yeah, that ages well. But this seriously. Right. It's a nice time capsule. It is, you know.
I think it did, and I think the other thing people just realized that it was like one of those movies that came out and they haven't seen something like this before, where like, you know, there's an alcoholic, drunk fucking coach that's coaching these kids in this time. Maybe it was more acceptable back then because nowadays, who knows if people would really respond like well to this kind of stuff.
Oh, in 2018, no.
You know,
no.
Yeah, interestingly, Mighty Ducks was kind of the same concept. Because Gordon Bombay got busted for drunk driving.
Right. Well, he
got forced to coach the Ducks.
He was depressed because he was a lawyer and he didn't make it out of the minor leagues, right? But he had the talent, and then he pretty much, you know, he's depressed about it, so he drinks all the time, and that's when he gets caught by the cops and he gets put, you know, by
Are you talking about Gordon Bombay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, I'm just talking about what Matt was talking about that movie, like the premises of it.
Yeah, shit. Man.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, drunk guy coaches kids. It's like, it's a thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, if we're gonna go down that road for a minute and talk about it, you could say the same thing about Cool Runnings, a Disney movie made with John Goodman. John Candy. John Candy. You know, he lives in, you know, Jamaica, and he's
drinking pina coladas every day.
Right, because he's depressed because he cheated and got kicked out or whatever, and they need a real coach. I mean, there's a lot of stories probably back early in days that you could refer
Oh,
this
even
to.
that new one. I never saw the movie, but Eddie the Eagle too, right? Wasn't Hugh Jackman?
Sorry, what one?
Eddie the Eagle.
Sorry, I've never seen that movie.
I haven't seen that one either.
Didn't that seem like a kid movie or something that came out? I'm sorry to laugh and make fun of it, but I thought that was like one of those like kid movies that just didn't. I don't know. Sorry.
No. It was where this guy who's like, I don't want to say he's like retarded. Well, I can't because it's 2018. But he's like kind of like not all. It just seems like he's not. He's like
he's retarded.
He's got 98 cents of a dollar going on, and he's same thing. Like he wants to do like this Olympic like kind of ski jumping, but he's never done it before. And Hugh Jackman is just like I never even seen the movie. You're
good.
But anyways,
talking about Eddie the Eagle with Hugh Jackman. You lose your train of thought.
Yeah, let's just drop that whole train of thought and move on.
So
it was just, look, I never saw the whole movie, but. Yeah, it just to chime in, it was another story of a shithead mentor who over time grew to, at first, I think he like underestimated Eddie, but then over time like grew to realize it's like, yeah, he's not gonna win, but he's just like he's still gonna support him.
Right.
Yeah,
I get that. So getting back to on topic what we're talking about. So like we did, the Bad News Bears, and we're talking about the original one. So I'm going to go and talk about the newer one that was made with Billy Bob Thornton, which I think it was like 2003 or 4. I'd say it came out. I'll look it up real quick if I can't remember exactly, but pretty much it's the same premise as the same story, everything. It was made in 2005. I'm sorry, so the year that I graduated, pretty much. And this movie actually scored really worse than the original one, and I think it had to do with the simple fact that they liked Billy Bob Thornton, but the story wasn't as good. Maybe the kids' actors weren't really that good. I really didn't. I didn't really find this one as entertaining as the original one.
Because can I say this about kid actors? After watching Stranger Things, I realized like if you have like a kid-centric movie, those kid actors, they're going to make or break the movie.
Right, because they're what's carrying it.
Right.
It's like they're the focus of the storyline.
They're the backstory, pretty much. Like like you just said, the focus of the movie is on them, right?
And that's even, you can take that back to like even, I know he's a nut job now, but like Corey Feldman, like how many movies did he carry?
The
in
Goonies
his career?
and all those movies.
Like yeah, seriously, a good child actor, like.
Well, it's the truth, right? We've talked about it before, and this movie, why I didn't really like it that much, this is why I'm saying to me the original was a lot better, right? And it always will be better than. And you can't really, to me, you can't remake this movie. They tried and they failed at it, and this is the repercussions of it. And not to say Billy Bob Thornton is not a great actor, because he is, and he can do the same role as Walter Matthau can. But to me, this movie, it wasn't that good, and it didn't hit home with me. Like I thought it would be good with Billy Bob Thornton, but really I think the kids ruined the movie for me.
I think, one saving grace would have to be Billy Bob Thornton, because you get that classic, just his snarkiness, how he comes back at you with some smart-ass remark. Like I think for this one, those are some of the funniest scenes in the movie when he's just like talking shit, like people trying to get him down, and he just fires back with something.
Yeah, it's classic Billy Bob Thornton, in my opinion. I mean, he does that in a lot of movies. Like in Bad Santa, the same way. He's an alcoholic and he talks shit the entire movie, which makes that movie a classic.
Yeah, it's great.
Amazing.
I love it.
Which is why you would think, this movie would be amazing too. That was made after probably this movie.
But do you think maybe it's a generational thing? Like,
in what way?
In a way of like, well, it's hard to say that because I know we just talked about Mighty Ducks and that was released in the early 90s, but I mean, like, look at like a right-out alcoholic, like coaching kids, like it makes more sense in context in the 70s than it would like in the 2000s. Because like when you say 2000s, I automatically start thinking like, like
9/11 changed everything, man.
Right, yeah, no, seriously, like participation trophies and like, everybody, don't spank your kids.
No child left behind.
Whereas like, it's just like, this. I feel like this movie was, I didn't see it, but if I had to make a guess, it sounds like it was forced.
It was
into a generation that it just doesn't work.
I don't think it necessarily reached, to the demographic they were going for. Like, we grew up with like movies like The Sandlot. Like, this seems just like a vehicle for Billy Bob Thornton to talk shit.
It was.
Was this a money-making venture, would you guys say?
I would say so, and this is kind of the point of the podcast of why we picked this topic is to me, it's like you can't remake every movie, right? I feel like they try nowadays to...
And they'll turn it into some shit into TV shows nowadays.
Right.
Like, how do you...
I feel like some movies you can. Right?
And I appreciate it, the good ones that are executed well, because I think they take the spirit of the movie and run with it, like in Fargo, the first couple seasons for sure.
I just think the creativity isn't there half the time with some of this stuff. It's like, you know what, I'm just going to...
It's a product.
I'm going to spitball another movie out. It's like, just think if someone tried to remake the Terminator, like the original ones without Arnold, like... How stupid would those be? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my opinion.
See him.
I don't think most people would.
Boycott that.
I think most people would. But my point is, I really like the original Bad News Bears better.
I would only accept a reboot with Sly Stallone. Shout out to Last Action Hero.
Right, yeah.
But for real though, like if out of these two movies, I mean, the reason I picked this movie is because one of those movies I saw when I was a kid, and I really enjoyed it. And even when it's on today, of course, I'll watch it. And even the newer one, I've watched a couple times, but I won't turn it on after I've watched it a couple times. I'm like, you know what? I just don't like it and enjoy it. So, I mean, I'm glad you guys have kind of the same type of opinion with this topic at all, because you know.
I just want to reiterate what you stated. Not everything can be remade. Not everything should be remade. But it's just
Definitely.
like, is there like am I alone here? But doesn't it feel like there's been a creative deficit in Hollywood for a while now?
Definitely.
Like
Like,
they're just like rehashing so much stuff, and it's like if you want to get original stuff, it's like you almost got to go indie.
well, so like researching movies for this topic, I realized like there was a lot of films like 40s, 50s that were remade in like the 70s, but it seems like kind of around the era of this Bad News Bears remake was kind of like when things started taking off, they started just copycatting movies left and right, you know.
Yeah, 2005.
That
Come on.
seems to be like where it's like,
Well, I think that what happens is they see these movies and are like, what was a good movie in the 70s, right? And for example, Bad News Bears, and they made a lot of money back then. You could look at the stuff; it was a very hitful movie. Now, for example, going forward now in 2018, I just saw they're remaking the original movie Overboard with Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn.
right? I saw
That's
that too.
That's another movie,
But it's like the roles are reversed, right?
right? But
Yeah.
you can't redo that fucking movie. Like, I'm sorry.
You cannot. I'm not gonna. That's like saying. That's like redoing Roadhouse.
Yeah,
Right.
Which
Like, are you
they were
fucking-
doing,
you
right?
can't- yeah,
I don't
they-
know if that got canned, but
I think it got
Are they-
done.
are you
It-
kidding
it-
me?
Yeah, Ronda Rousey
and
was gonna
everything.
be-
I was not going to watch that. So
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. You know, like you can't. These are kind
I'm
of movies.
absolutely disgusted
so it's
by
like
what was just said out loud.
And the reason I'm saying this is because that was my parents' favorite movie, right? And Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn are amazing actor and actresses. Like I love Kurt
Oh,
Russell
yeah.
and I love
Dude,
Goldie
that
Hawn.
was a great dude. Kurt Russell. All
he's
right?
one of my favorites
and
of
then
all time.
fucking
Yeah.
Goldie Hawn, and not only that, like they were married, right?
Yeah, they're married
They
in
never
real
got
life.
married. They've always been a couple and dating since. They didn't want to get married because they didn't want anything to happen, with their relationship. So they stayed a couple, and they're still together till this day. Like the only ones in Hollywood that actually like sacred relationships. So it's after that movie they got together. Actually, most people don't know that.
I didn't know that, and I this is off the rails, but I have to say, man, I hate it that seriously, like, because she did the face stuff. If you've seen her lately, Goldie Hawn.
Well, everybody does
and then
in
Amy
Hollywood.
Schumer.
She's getting up there in age,
well,
you know.
but
She had to do
it's
something.
not. It's not fair because do you see George Clooney or any guys getting facelift? There's like so
Maybe
much
they
more.
do.
There's so much more pressure in Hollywood, especially on women, to like because they're always ready to cast Jennifer Lawrence as like playing a 40-year-old, even though she's like a kid.
I think it's
right.
a twofold though, because I think there's women.
And unless you're Glenn Close or what's her name, like there's just some actresses that have staying power, but otherwise it's like, dude, think about the movies over the past years, and it's just like, how many chicks have come and gone, and how many guys have come and gone?
Well, I mean, put it this way: you're in Hollywood. Your job is to look good and be your best, or whatever. So, when you're in the limelight all the time, you're gonna have to do things to stay fit and look young. And now the big craze nowadays is be healthy and be active and be working out. And like that's why Kate Upton, which is their daughter, is a health freak, and she's all about that kind of stuff, right? Which she's hot and beautiful and whatever. But that's what it is. It's like your job is to look young and
Kate
be
Hudson,
or Hudson, sorry.
still super hot.
Yeah, regardless, both of them are. My point is, if you're in Hollywood and you had a chance and all the access to do it, you'd probably do it too. And probably guys do it. They just don't talk about it as much as women. It's not as noticeable because they don't do as much as women do, right? So,
But yeah, all I'm saying is, I'm thinking back to the last picture I saw of Goldie Hawn, and it was like her face was like swollen with Botox,
Right.
and it was
Yeah.
just like.
All too often, you see it.
And it's just a shame when it's just like you've seen like just she's been in so much good stuff that she had like I guess has to resort to that to still get work. I feel like
it's funny to me because it's like it almost looks more horrendous and like Frankensteinish than what an old lady looks like.
well,
you know
I think
what I mean?
when they do too much, it does. But when they do a
Right.
little bit, like if they're doing a little bit in their forehead to get wrinkles out or under their eyes or something, it's not that bad. But when they go full,
Yeah,
like
be subtle
all their
with
face,
it.
right, it looks terrible, right? But to get back on topic, I'm going to say my pick was out of the two. Bad News Bears original was
Yeah.
awesome, and I think we're going to move on to our next pick, which is
I agree with you.
was Evil Dead. So this is actually Matt's pick. So Matt, I'm going to let you lead this one off.
All right, so Evil Dead, it's the classic story of a few friends going to have a great weekend at a cabin in the woods. So they go to this cabin out in the middle of nowhere to party it up, have a good time, drink some beers. So, they're getting comfortable in the cabin. So searching around, they find a book called the Necronomicon and a series of tape recordings from this old scientist explaining, the horrors of this book. So basically, this book is evil and starts possessing the cabin goers.
Sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
you know what I loved about the recording? It's almost like Lovecraftian.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You mean the recording they're listening to from the scientist?
Yeah, and even the Necronomicon.
Well, that actually comes from the Lovecraft universe.
Oh, really? Because
Yeah.
I have to admit, I've only ever read the Mountains of Madness.
Right. He'll in his stories he'll frequently reference it was like written by the Mad Arab, the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead or whatever. So basically all hell breaks loose. This book is consuming the soul of Ash, who's the main character, and his friends.
And so the soul consuming is what. Sorry to jump ahead, but is that what brings forth the demons?
Well, right. So it's like the evil of the book is possessing them.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I remember, sorry to cut you off the plot, but the college students, they go into the cabin, they stumble upon the book and the recordings, they read some of the book, and then they start playing the recordings, which actually starts releasing the demons.
Right,
and
because
stuff.
the secret words or whatever are spoken in the recordings, unleashing the power of the book upon them.
And that was because when he was recording that and he was saying those words, that was the original unleashing, right? Because didn't he fuck himself over? The doctor who found
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
correct. Right.
Yeah, and so he tried to contain
recorded it.
he tried to contain it up in the cabin and hope that no one ever came across it. And I can't think of exactly why they knew of this cabin or they
I
had
don't think
bought
it's
it
ever
or something.
explained, or was it? Because I thought it wasn't.
It may not have been, but basically all these people start getting possessed. The area around the home is the forest is alive. There's a scene where one of the chicks tries to run and is the roots of the trees grab her feet, and there's this horrendous murder essentially by trees to this chick. But yeah, it's one thing I love about the original is the way it's filmed. It's almost like someone with a camcorder. It's all handheld almost.
Who was the director? Do you remember?
Sam Raimi.
Sam
I wanna say.
Raimi. Yeah.
So yeah, it just has this feel you're rolling it onto this creepy cabin and all this weird stuff is happening and it to some degree it's almost comical the way it's shot and filmed. Because it's so over the top, but
dude,
it's really scary stuff is happening. Some possessed chick is locked in the cellar below the floorboards and peeking out through.
Did I miss something at the beginning? Didn't they come across this possessed chick that was in the cabin or around the cabin?
No.
They're not okay. So I'm thinking.
No.
I'm sorry, but that isn't it, or is that in the newer one?
No. So they ran into some locals,
Okay.
right, on the way there.
I want to say, there's like any movie like this, they stop somewhere and they get some warning about it or that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was. I think.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I think in the newer one, I think there's some possessed chick they run into. Okay, so my bad, I got mixed up. But anyway, so they go in the cabin, they read this stuff. remember them. I remember they're in Tennessee, right? That's if I
Oh,
remember.
it's
the
in the
camera work. I
Appalachians.
loved it because after the reading, it's just like, it just goes zooming, and then boom, door opens, and it's just like, well, what the fuck was that? And it was just like, I don't know if they realized, but to me, it was like that's the demon,
Yeah.
coming
Right.
to possess.
Oh, wait, hold on. This movie was no, I'm thinking of a different movie. I was thinking, sorry, it's something different. But one thing.
Shut up.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I remember about this is the original one is they tried really hard to do a lot of like props and like stuff because there was no CGI back in
Right.
the 80s.
Oh yeah,
right?
practical effects.
It was kind of corny. Even when I was a kid, I wasn't really scared when I originally watched this. I was like, "What is going on?"
But
it
you know what?
That's what I mean.
It was
It's
good for the
almost
time.
comical.
But it was very good for the time. Is what
But but I wonder. It's just like going back to that time era, like because CGI wasn't. It was nothing, and it's just like you think back, and it was just like, while we can appreciate the comical aspect way more because of what our exposure to like so much more shit. But
Right.
back then, like I do wonder, like I bet there were people out there that were like, "Oh, that movie scared the shit out of me."
For me, it's like it still holds up in the sense of like for low budget and what they were going for, it's like it's good enough. But like that's why they ended up making Evil Dead 2 is essentially just a retelling of the first plot.
Yeah.
But where they had more cash to do it better.
I do remember when I was younger, my cousin told me about this movie, and I watched it, and that's what I was saying. Like, it was kind of corny back then, but he told me when this movie came out when he was a kid, like, it was the scariest movie at the time. Like, it was awesome. Like, he went back and saw it again and again because it was that good. So,
Because and then you think about Evil Dead 2, and it's like, I would say that's even more comical because they're playing that up even, I think, and it's
Right.
just like so. Getting back to just Evil Dead 1, it is more just straight to the business. While there are some funny aspects, there is still plenty of horror to it.
Well, right, and so it's like they were pretty self-aware of like the tone of the film.
Yeah.
So it's like they go on to make Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
Which is a
That's
straight
right.
comedy.
that was straight comedy.
right.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
good. I remember that.
Right. So that's what happens to Ash after he's
and Bruce
sucked into
Campbell,
a portal.
I have to say, dude, I couldn't imagine any other actor in that role, and it's just like that's kind of like that's been his career pretty much.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I actually got to meet Bruce Campbell at the Tivoli.
No shit.
He was I forget the movie. It was around like 2007 or 8. He was releasing a new movie and doing like a tour along with it.
Did you shake his chainsaw?
Unfortunately, no. They said it was too dangerous. Might lose a finger. Lawsuits and all.
It's worth it. Let me sign a waiver.
But yeah, so there's like a Q&A after the film, and my buddy John actually asked him if he ever refers to his penis as a boomstick. And he deflected in some clever way, not like really alluding to ever saying that kind of thing.
But
But it was hilarious that someone from the audience asked.
Yeah, that is hilarious.
Yeah, so getting back into the movie, if I remember correctly, wasn't out of the 5 college students that went there to the cabin for the summer vacation, right? Because that's what they're doing. That's the point of the movie.
Well, I thought it was 2 couples, and then did they have a 5th wheel?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, it's 2 girls and like 4 or 3 guys, right?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so like you're like
Yeah,
this couple.
but there was 2 couples and then a 5th wheel, and I thought it was more of just like a weekend getaway.
Yeah. Well, regardless, 4 people get possessed and die, and 1 person gets away. That I remember, right, from the original one.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be Ash?
Ash gets away.
Okay, that's
yeah.
what I want to like clarify because I remember someone gets away. I didn't remember his name, and that's what I wanted to remember and how he got away and stuff. So like, he gets away, but then that's what happens in the second one, right? It follows him or whatever.
Well, so essentially, like the second one wipes away what happened in the first.
Retcon, kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of just a retelling. Like I said, they just had more budget at this point, so he wanted to just do because basically it was a straight he paid for it himself film, the original Evil Dead, and then he had a studio backing, so it's like let's just retell this story, but with like we'll add elements to it, like Ash's hand gets possessed and he has to cut it off with a chainsaw. So like in the first film though, he's pretty much just like fighting his way out with a shotgun that he found in the cabin.
And you know what though, if you think about it, like horror movies, like you can make at least the classic ones, not anymore. Now everybody's spoiled now with horror, but back in the day, you could make a low budget horror. I mean, look at the original. What was the original zombie movie?
Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead. Like, it was literally just a bunch of people walking around with some makeup and fake blood, and
it didn't even look that great. It was more about, it was character driven.
It was.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about, so we could talk about this for probably for hours, but to me, when our parents were growing up and stuff, like that was like the hot, I guess the hot spot for horror movies. There's nothing that's been done before, right? Like all their stuff is brand new, fresh. Now that all these movies came out and they're cult classics, or what do you want to call them now, like you're just talking about now. It's
dude, Evil Dead's a cult classic for sure.
It's impossible to redo these movies. Like every movie's been fucking done from here to wherever. And if a movie does stand out, it becomes the new horror, awesome like genre that people want to go for. And then after that happens, like it blows up for a little bit and then dies off again. So to me, horror is a really hard section in movies now to actually get good returns on if you do a movie, like for that reason.
But I will say this, and seriously though, like the reboot, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, I'll call it a reboot of Evil Dead because they went like in a different direction. Obviously, just more straight horror. Mm-hmm. Well, in my opinion, it was fucking fantastic.
No, I think it was too, and we can get right into that.
And just, I mean, if we can you just want to segue into that now, is there anything else to touch on with the classic? I mean, it had almost a comedy feel, but it was still like a true horror. Like,
right.
There was like, the
it's just the nature of the things that are happening.
The chick. Okay, like literally,
inducing.
it's just like when they had the chick locked in the basement, and it was just like. She'd pop up and she looked regular, and then to fuck with them, and then she'd come back
like
with
change
as a
form.
wit, and
it's
then
like that
eventually,
spooky shit, regardless of like how good the effects were. That's why I think that movie
Ash
holds
gets stuck
up.
down there, with her,
right?
And it's like fucked up, man.
So the newer one, definitely, I think I love the original. I'm not gonna say I don't like the original, but to me, the newer one.
Well, hey Matt, let's let you want to kick off the newer one.
Sure, however you guys want to do it, but so the newer one, it's like we would consider it a reboot. It's a retelling of the original story with new characters, but basic same concept. Some young kids are going to spend a weekend at a cabin, and when they settle in, they find the same book, the Necronomicon. This time, they don't find any recordings. There's just a warning to not say these words written in the book, and not believing it or just not caring. One of the characters says the words to like initiate the evil from the book, and then same concept. The cabin goers start getting possessed, and they have to lock them away and try to figure out what's going on, how do we stop this, and fight their way out. But like, plot aside, the approach to this movie was much different, and it's more of your linear storyline horror,
more
film.
serious horror, like no comedy to this whatsoever.
Right. It was more so. It was most definitely gorier, more about just like the horror elements, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to say and get into earlier, which I liked about this one, and I think most people don't notice, and this is the point I was going to bring up, is to me, this was a better one just because, I guess, the simple aspect of I liked some of the actors better, and probably it was less corny, and there was a lot of, like, true, like, horror stuff that happened. Like, there was a lot of blood and a lot of, like, scary shit that happened. But one thing I think most people are not going to know about this, unless they really know a lot about the Evil Dead, is that there was no CGI in this entire movie. It was all props. It was all original stuff that was done, which made
the remake.
In the remake.
And it looked amazing.
Oh
Everything
man,
looked
that
amazing.
explains it.
Right.
I mean,
they really wanted to emphasize on doing original horror stuff from the original Evil Dead, and they wanted to do the same type of feel with no CGI, which makes this movie that much better. Because what I feel about with nowadays with horror movies, and I'm sure a lot of people agree, is that they overblow it with CGI shit, like some girl coming over and her head twisting up and they're going off the wall because they're trying to make it more creepy.
yeah, and they're like, it's that thing where it's just like they cut out like frames to make it look like they're like
stuttering
Right.
and doing
like, yeah,
and
like
crazy.
the Ring kind of shit.
Yeah, and which doesn't, don't get me wrong, the Ring was scary at the time, what it was, but they
But
they overdo it now, like they do
Yeah,
too much of it. Right?
I agree with that statement.
I really feel that horror needs to be like psychologically frightening.
It does.
Because like, you know how much like gore can. It's like we see
Gore
it
and
all.
jump scares.
Yeah, we see it
Yeah,
all
I'm
at this
done
point.
with that.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, go fuck yourself with that kind of movie. It's like, granted, I've enjoyed some. Some are just fun.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, if I'm gonna enjoy a horror movie, it's gonna be because the story is solid. Like you mentioned, The Ring. Like I think that movie still holds up. It's not necessarily like I'm gonna have nightmares watching this, but it's just an interesting storyline. And
We could, I mean, throw in another movie I'm thinking of right now. It's like, it wasn't really scary, but what kind of was The Sixth Sense. There wasn't a lot of CGI or
Ooh,
stuff.
that scarred me. That
You know,
scarred me.
but it had a great
as a kid
it had
because I
a
saw
great
it as a
storyline.
kid.
Had a great storyline
Yeah.
and a great twist. You didn't know the entire time what was going on. For people who haven't seen The Sixth
That
Sense,
movie is the sole reason why Hollywood let him make all of the rest of his bullshit.
right,
Like, you know,
because
it
that movie
is.
killed it. It won Oscars.
It killed it, dude.
Yeah.
Seriously, that scene in the school where he when he's finally after he's come to terms with it, and there's like after that play, before the play where they mentioned the fire and it
he
was
sees
just like
the burnt
and
lake.
then afterwards when he's talking to maybe I'm jumping forward, but do you remember the scene when he's in the school and the people are hanging?
Right.
And he's just like trying to ignore it when he's talking to Bruce Willis.
Yeah, that's earlier in the movie.
Oh, and then when he goes to that little girl's funeral and sees her ghost on the bed and slides the movie to him, like seriously, like that movie scarred me for
Yeah, it
years.
gave me
It
the
was
creeps
so
for sure,
fucking
yeah.
scary.
yeah. So I mean, like those are what I'm like Matt was saying earlier, like a good story, plot line, twist, and everything.
Yes, the good example of a good story
I mean,
horror. Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
We could really do a podcast on like if we were gonna do a horror section of actual real movies, that would be something I would actually want to talk about for type horror type movies. But like we're getting into, I appreciate more of the original stuff with the less CGI with the story.
Yeah, practical. Practical.
I don't think it's
with horror.
I just don't feel like it's
Right.
done enough anymore. I feel like everything is they have to overdo it to get a.
Saw did a lot of practical in the early ones, but then I
Right.
think
They
started
got
switching. They
ridiculous
got
at a
ridiculous and
certain
switched
point.
CGI. But I mean, even that. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I'll honestly admit I hate the later Saw movies, but the first
Well,
one.
think of the original. It mostly
The
takes
original
place
was-
in a dirty bathroom.
Yeah.
One set piece
yeah.
for the most part.
The same thing with a low budget film you can talk about earlier is Paranormal Activity. Like that really hit home. Like some of you guys might like it. I actually liked the original, like the first one, but after that I didn't really like the storyline after the first one, like where they
Right.
tried to go with it.
I can't believe they made sequels to Blair Witch Project.
Well, I mean at the time that movie was. I remember seeing it in theaters and like I got sick because of the shakiness of the camera and all the
Shaky
shit.
Cam. That was kind of the intro.
Because that was the
introduction of like the found.
That was like
footage.
the first found footage film.
Yeah.
And that's how
People
they
believed
marketed it.
Do you remember there were news stories?
They marketed
like,
it as such, that it
Yeah.
was truly found footage.
Talk about great marketing,
Right.
Because everybody
Another
like,
low
went
budget movie
nuts
that
on
made a
it.
lot of money, which is crazy because you don't see that nowadays. Nowadays you have to see people.
But in
spend,
horror, you can get away with low budget.
right?
But what? I'm sorry. What?
I'm saying like it's very hard nowadays to get away with a low budget movie. Like it doesn't really happen. Like Paranormal Activity was probably the last movie that's probably been like that. And what was it? 6 or 7 years ago when it came out. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was
exactly.
probably like I'd say 08 or 09, somewhere around there.
What do you guys think of The Conjuring?
I thought it was.
I thought
I
that
was
was pretty
entertained
solid.
by it.
That was good.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty solid for modern day.
right.
I mean, they do employ jump scares and stuff, but I really enjoy the story.
I mean, if I'm really gonna get into any type of movie, because when I was a kid, I loved the horror movies. It was probably my favorite thing to watch, and the one that's the best to me will always be the best is Halloween. John Carpenter's Halloween.
Yeah.
There's no movie to me that did it better for a movie that's about a guy who was just possessed by the devil or the demon at the time and just coming back. I mean,
Wasn't that one of Jamie Lee Curtis's like first?
that was her first movie.
Yeah,
That was her
very
first
early
movie.
in her
Right,
career.
and
Yeah.
pretty much made her career and made her who she is. So it made John Carpenter why he was able to do The Thing and all the movies he did because of Halloween, because of how successful it was.
John Carpenter did Halloween?
Yeah.
Yes.
Dude,
Holy fuck.
Look at his catalog, dude. He's done so many great things.
I'm not gonna. I know it's a cheesy movie now, but I'll always love John Carpenter vampires and Ghost of Mars.
Yeah.
Big Trouble in Little China is like another one of my favorite movies ever.
You know, it's funny.
That's-
Corny, but
I just literally
hilarious.
watched that today. I literally just watched it.
Yeah,
on
that
TV.
movie's
Man,
great.
John really likes Kurt, doesn't he?
Yeah, they
Oh,
worked
yeah.
together multiple times.
multiple times. But going back
And
to
it works. It works.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
but
no, you're good. Just getting to back to the point, like if there's any movie out there that's a cult classic, something they didn't really remake, they just kept doing it on with was Halloween. There's probably one or two that I really didn't like, but pretty much for every horror movie they've made, I've liked every single one of them.
really, the Halloweens?
Yes, every single one I pretty
'Cause,
much
I mean,
liked.
it was-
Besides like number
'cause
4
look at-
when they didn't do him, they did some other crap.
You had Halloween, Jason, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's just like they just never stopped making them. And then
Yeah,
they
there's like
rebooted some of
20.
them.
There's like 20 of
Yeah.
each
of a
those.
serial
They
killer
just kept
type
going.
feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we're going to talk about any type of serial killer movie, that movie's the pinnacle of what a good serial killer movie was.
Yeah, escape from the loony bin on a killing spree.
Right.
So,
But
I
but
know-
to rein back in, man, I do have to say, the remake of Evil Dead. I mean, this is just so it came out in 2013,
Yep.
and oh my gosh, like yeah, the fact that it was just so I had no problem with the first Evil Deads, but this is
Right.
like this was just fucking
No,
fantastic. This was just like what I was wanting, kind of.
The way it's paced, things escalate quicker, and
because
they got more extreme with it. Like
Yes.
and there's some like seriously like brutal and horrendous shit in this movie.
There's a lot of gory shit that happened. I remember actually when I did some recap on this, they talked about how some of the props and some of the stuff they did actually like gross people out to the point like that some of the actors and actresses like I really didn't like they surprised them when they're on set like what is this shit they're doing like, which is awesome because you know as I was talking about earlier, they're used to people doing it with CGI now. They actually didn't do any of that stuff. They use real stuff to do this kind of stuff.
Right.
But and I don't know if they made it clear in the original that like because it just seemed more like and I might be wrong. I would have to re-listen to the recordings that they were listening to, but like the whole like demon summoning thing because it
Right.
seemed like it had more specificity in the remake because they like eventually like the blood rain with the ultimate one coming.
Right.
And then you had
Well, so it was more
badass, awesome chick hero,
Right.
just who fucking survived.
So
Like, and
right. I would just say it was a more like conclusive plot as opposed to like the original film. It's like it comes full circle. She battles this like the super demon when it's raining blood, and it's like days saved or whatever. So I don't know for you guys like this one for me is kind of a toss up. It's hard to say because like I enjoy both movies a lot, and I feel like they are pretty different even though they follow the same plot line. I like them for different reasons.
yeah, I can't pick one over the other personally.
I think personally for me, I still like the newer one just for the look and feel if I'm going to go for the horror aspect, but the original's still a great story.
For 2013, that new one
Right.
was a solid.
No, yeah,
horror movie.
I love that movie. It's just it's too hard for me to really pick a favorite. They're too different in my book.
Yeah, so I think that pretty much wraps up the Evil Dead. So I think we'll move on to Sam's pick, which is I'll let you take this on, Sam. What did you pick for your remake?
All right. So for my pick, I went with The Thing.
Classic.
And on this one, guys, so to all 8 listeners out there, I actually just rewatched that first movie like twice in the past week.
Right.
And goddamn, is it a classic? I mean, once again, John Carpenter, Kurt Russell, You're out in the Antarctic, okay? So the movie starts off. You have this American camp. It's just a research camp, I guess.
Yeah,
And-
they're all out there doing science.
yeah, it's Antarctica camps. Well,
Let's do science.
Yeah, science.
Weird
bitch.
science.
Weird science. Bill Paxton, rest in peace. But yeah, so the movie starts off, you know, the Americans are going about their business. Then helicopter flies in, chasing a dog, shooting at the dog. It concerns the Americans because the dog gets close to the American camp and they're shooting at it from the
Right.
helicopter. So the Americans are thinking that they got cabin fever, right?
Yeah,
And they gone nuts.
I
'cause
think
they're
there's a
killing
line
one
that
of their-
says, "Are we at war with Norway?"
yeah.
Yeah, so like
Because that's how because I remember like
they're at a Norwegian base.
Yeah, they're Norwegians. Kurt Russell keeps calling them Swedish though, because he's Kurt Russell.
yeah. No, that's why I think earlier I was
Right.
calling them Swedes.
Right.
But yeah, so anyways, so it's just like they think these people are off their rockers, and so they take them down and save the dog. And then come to find out, so actually the dog was loose in the camp before for like almost a day and a half actually.
Right.
Before they locked it up.
Before they killed him with the rest of the dogs.
Right. So, anyways, the dog. So after that incident, everybody was just like, "What the fuck's going on with the Norwegian camp?" So even though the weather was bad, so they only had a limited amount of time. So a group of them go to
their camp.
Yeah.
Right.
And they go check it out, and that's when they find out that they made this huge discovery. They bring back the found footage, but while they were there in the camp, they found a morphed human body.
It's like halfway. It's like face is stretched, like it's like halfway morphed from something into a human visage. You'd say it's like it looks not human at all, but.
And at first, because it was out in the frozen, but then they bring it back and thaw it out. But then, so then that, and then they find some their research that they bring back, and so then they go back to the camp and they're looking at their research and they let this thing thaw out, and they find out. But no, before they left the camp too, though, is everybody saw that there was an ice block cut out.
Right.
That it looked like almost like a coffin, kind of.
Exactly.
Because like you could tell like there was something in there
Mhm.
that's not in there anymore.
Right.
And so
An empty vessel.
An empty vessel. So then they get back to camp and
Well, so not to cut you off, but like, so while searching their camp, there's also dudes who had like slit their wrists and the blood had like frozen into icicles. Like, so they knew something was definitely up at this camp. People were killing themselves. There's these like monstrous disfigured things there. Like I said, not to cut you off, but I just felt that was
so
like
then, So the three guys that went, they're like, dude, no, like this is fucked up shit. And then they brought back the evidence, and I remember when they laid him out, the guy who had the dysmorphic, like it was almost looking like his face was splitting.
Right.
And it's just like I just remember they plop on the table, and he's steaming.
yeah,
Because
and
he's in the warmth now, and it was just like because he was out frozen in the cold, and you start getting a better view of him and what it is, and it was just like this fucked up guy, and then the one guy it wasn't the doctor, but like who was it who was going through the found footage? Was he like a professor or something, like or an academic?
Yeah, so I believe the character's name was Dr. Copper.
I think that's what's confusing me is because his name was Doctor, but then there was also a doctor.
So there was two. Blair and Copper were both doctors.
They were both okay. So they were both doctors.
Yeah.
Because I know that the one was it Blair who starts going through the footage and the
he also does
the
like,
research.
performs like an autopsy on the disfigured thing
He
found.
performs the first autopsy.
So right, they go to that place, right, and they find the creature and they bring it back with them, right, and that's when he performs the autopsy and figures
Right.
what the hell this thing is, and then that's when the thing gets out and mutates.
But
right?
but yeah. So here's the deal, though: is in the found footage, they realized that. And they also saw it as well. Did they see it, or did they go back after the found footage to look again?
Well, they saw them like dynamiting in a certain area. Are you talking about they find the spacecraft, right?
Right. Okay. So yeah, was that in the found footage?
They see them like blowing up a certain, like essentially using dynamite to excavate a certain area. So they're looking at their charts and see like, oh, they were at these coordinates.
That's
they
right.
Go to look,
and then they go back. So because they originally went to the base camp, so then when they come back and
Right.
see that they were working in this area, they go back.
That's right. They didn't find everybody dead, right?
But at when they first went to the camp, yeah. But when they went to the site they were excavating with the dynamite and shit, that's when they find the cutout that had the thing in it.
Oh, okay.
And
that's
they
right,
also
yeah.
found the frozen spaceship.
right. That was under the ice.
So it was assumed that whatever landed was froze climbing out of the crashed spaceship.
That's right. Another funny thing about this movie is the fact that the thing, when this came out, the people didn't like this movie, right?
Right.
So this movie came out. It's another movie that
Probably been really uncomfortable.
No, I think it's a simple fact they just didn't like. This was a remake of another movie. So this movie's been remade multiple times, right? First it was a book. I can't remember the book
Yeah.
name. Then it came
Who
out.
goes there or something like that.
and then
yeah.
we came out to an original movie like in the 50s. It was called like A Thing or something like that.
That was almost more like a Frankenstein movie if you were seeing it.
And then they redid this, and the guy who actually remade the movie actually said that he didn't like, I guess, really like what John Carpenter did with this, right? And people were not really happy with it or whatever. And then later down the road, people actually started appreciating the movie and actually realized how good of a fucking movie it really was, and became one of those classic horror movies that people actually appreciated at the time.
Well, it's like done so brilliantly in that. Well, I guess we should explain how the thing works. So it's basically some sort of life form that can, like if it touches any sort of biological material, can completely replicate it. So like if it infects you, it can pose as human or that sort of thing. So it's like.
It's kind of like a virus, as what I would think it is. It's like a virus.
Exactly.
It can spread, and then it can overtake other life forms. Like if it touches a dog or one of us, it would actually take the life form and actually replicate it, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between me and the alien.
Right. So it's like in that aspect, it adds so much tension because it's like you don't know who's who, and then they start trying to like trace this timeline back together. Like, well, you were alone with so-and-so, or you were alone with the alien body, like, you must be infected, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it makes the whole movie very tense.
It does. I remember watching...
Paranoia horror.
Yeah,
right.
It's cool because it's like the entire movie they're sitting there and they're trying to like decipher who the hell the thing is, and the thing is so good at adapting to what's going on that they can't tell the difference between... Kurt Russell or the thing Kurt Russell or whoever it is in the movie, right? So
Well, yeah, it's the whole gimmick.
It's the whole
It
gimmick,
copies.
right? So
Right.
Another fun fact that you guys probably don't know, because I like to throw these in here all the time, is that
Stop doing that. Fuck you.
Okay.
No,
When they
kidding,
originally
yeah.
made this movie, when John Carpenter was producing it and directing it, he actually didn't tell anybody in the cast who was playing the thing at the time. So they're literally playing and role playing the movie, not knowing who actually the person was the thing. They weren't.
That was a good idea, just
Yeah.
to keep it
Yeah.
fresh, or keep the actors
so
on their
he wouldn't
toes.
say, okay, now Kurt, you're the thing. Now play your part. He wouldn't say any of that stuff. So they didn't actually know until actually they're done shooting who was playing the thing at what parts. I thought that was actually really cool. Something that he did.
But yeah, no, it was just, in my opinion, this is the perfect horror movie. Like,
Complete isolation.
complete isolation, Antarctica. Okay, killer soundtrack. The build-ups are fantastic, and it's just
That's all John
like,
Carpenter himself too.
Oh,
He's good
man.
on the synthesizers.
So, and then and then the paranoia horror, and then the actual horror. It's just like, because it's like the thing is pitting them against themselves, so it's just like they're driving themselves crazy, kind of. And I just mean, it's just, and then the night shots, because how much of it was done in that one night. as far as like the story when they're like figuring out who the fuck's who, and then and then when the power shuts off and they go to that blue light, like
Right.
Yep.
it's just creepy shit,
It
man.
is.
And then the body morphing and then when they do like the dissection of the next one. And then I mean I can go on. It was just like when they finally put the dog in the pen, and then he fucking turns into that creature,
Right.
And the other dogs are scared shitless, and then the one doc goes crazy and kills all the dogs, and he's just like starts destroying shit. And people thought he was going crazy, but I understood immediately. He's like, this can't get out. He was just like,
So that was Blair, and the interesting thing is like it would be against the thing's nature to destroy like all their data and that sort of thing. But it's like hard to know exactly when he was infected because like he could have been just like playing it up to appear as like one of the guys, right? Like when he starts destroying all their computers and stuff. It's like I don't know because like I've seen this movie tons of times. I've tried to like track when people became infected or not. It's so hard to keep track of.
well, with
but, like,
Blair though, like you don't know, like because he had so much time by himself, like and that dog
Right.
was loose.
right.
So right, but I do know it got to the point where it was just like he was planning on just freezing out again until because he knew the rescue team or the next team that's coming, and then he could infect that.
Right.
So like I think that's when he starts cutting the power. But yeah, no, like
Well,
I
so-
swear to you, this is like the perfect horror movie.
If you recall, because like they thought Blair was infected because he went, they had locked him alone because he went crazy.
Right,
And started
built
breaking
that
all the
tunnel.
computers, shooting guns.
Yeah.
Like it was the
He's
Wild
shooting
West.
at people, literally shooting
Right.
at people.
And so, meanwhile, he's been like in the basement of that thing building a spaceship to get out.
Yeah,
So it's like he was infected at some point.
Right.
we never know when.
Exactly.
And it's like little things like that, man. And it's like that's John Carpenter, and it's just like, oh, man, like horror master.
So yeah, that
Seriously.
movie it was a great movie, and even leading up to the new one, Sam, if you want to talk about that one, I think the remake of the newer one was just as good.
Well, I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't fully watch the remake,
Well, it's fine. I mean, the original one is
but from
it's still the best one out of the two, in my
but
opinion.
I mean, look, it was like a prequel, right?
Exactly. It was like following the Norwegian camp pre John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same story, just like he said. It was prequel of what was going on. But
It's them finding it, and then their camp dealing with their horrors with
Right.
the thing.
Correct. Essentially the same thing
And-
happens, but yeah, they're the ones that like cut this thing out of the ice and let it thaw out, and it started infecting their
'Cause
crew.
I think I remember a scene where it was just like, right? They had the chunk of ice, and then one person went to check, and it was just like, then it was like empty vessel.
Mhm.
They were like, "What the fuck?" And it was
Right.
like, okay, like,
Yep.
And they didn't because they didn't know it was a shapeshifter. And then I think it would have been. And then think about that, dude. Like it would have been way. I think it would have been mentally way harder on the Norwegian camp than the American camp because it's like they had to start with it was a shock and awe with the helicopter crash and the Norwegians and the dog
Right.
and stuff. Whereas like the Norwegians just thought they just found the discovery of a lifetime in
Right.
this spaceship and in this creature. And it was just like they didn't realize that this creature's gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
So it's like I would say like the remake, the story didn't necessarily need to be told, but by its nature, it's not a bad movie. It's like it's done well, but like
I don't think, it wasn't done bad at all, but like I was saying earlier, the original is still way better. Like Kurt Russell
I mean, look at-
John Carpenter stuff, it was so much better of a story told.
yeah, execution wise, I think in all aspects beats out the remake.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Kurt and John Carpenter, it's a dream team. Like they've put out so much good work, and I'll just reiterate, in my opinion, this is the perfect horror movie. It really is.
It really is. It's one of it's just a different genre of horror. Like I was saying earlier, like you got the slashers and stabbers and the whatever, and then you got this movie, which is kind of like the intense, like suspenseful type feeling movie. Like you don't know what's going on. It does make you kind of think the entire time what's going on. It's
Yeah, because the whole time you're guessing. It's like who's the asshole here?
Right.
And then I love that they figured out like the blood test, and then they worked through them like that. You know, like that was so cool.
Well, so like at the end of the original, you know, it's like Childs, the black guy. I can't think of the actor's name.
oh man, he's
But,
been in so much good stuff.
Keith David.
Keith David.
Yeah. Yeah, you've heard his voice in a million things, but like so anyway, he's like missing for a while.
Yeah, They Live, dude. He was the one who fought Roddy Piper.
Right. That's another great John Carpenter movie.
It is.
Dude, well, okay, can we name something tonight that John Carpenter hasn't touched? Jesus Christ.
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, to me, when I watched this original one when I was a kid, you know, the funny thing was a lot of my friends didn't want to watch this movie when it came out. That's what was weird. It's like unless you were like brought up, I guess, in this fashion, or someone showed you these type of movies, like when you're a kid, like you weren't interested in watching this kind of stuff. I guess I was lucky enough that my cousin was like, you got to watch this stuff if you're in these kind of movies, and I got introduced to the original stuff before anything new.
Because you're talking about The Thing, right? The original Thing?
Yeah, the original thing.
Yeah, dude, it's just like it's like Cronenberg shit. Like seriously, the practical effects. I mean,
Well, so there are some scenes in the original Thing that look corny, like when he's fighting the big monster at the end. Like you can tell they used like miniatures and like overlaid on top of like real frames, but I would say a good majority of the practical effects still look great even to this day. However, close to 40 years later.
and I want to say this too. You got to give these characters like mad props because they knew it got to that point where they're like, we're not getting out alive. They
Right.
knew when they were like starting towards the end of the movie when the power went out. They knew.
And that was what I was bringing up earlier. The conversation between Kurt Russell and Keith David at the end. It's like they still don't trust each other, but like they can't know. It's like they're both gonna just like sit there and freeze out. And it's like there's no real resolution. Like, was the thing stopped or was it not? Like,
They don't really, you have to kind of figure it on your own.
right? Because like Kurt Russell killed the main monster, but was he infected while he was down there, or while Childs was like off on his own doing whatever?
That's why it's kind
Was
of
he
like Sam
infected?
saying it was kind of perfect storm, because even though if you kill this thing, you can get infected by it at the same time, so it's always going to live. You know, it's kind of like.
But I like to think of it as I do. I walk away with this with a positive, like, you know, like they killed the thing. I don't think they were infected. And I'm biased because I love both those actors, I
Right.
think, and both of the characters in the movie. They were just the biggest hard asses. And it was just like, I don't know, it's just hard. But maybe that's part of it. Is it's just like it's throwing me off, and it's just like, you know, it's just like
It's the unknown.
because that was the whole plan of the thing towards the end. Was it's just like I'm gonna freeze out and wait
Right.
for the rescue team, and I'm gonna go reinfect all the other shit because they fucked up the spaceship plan, and it was just like, you know, so really it's just like, who really fucking knows?
Yeah, and just
John Carpenter.
right.
I'm gonna send him an email, first class.
But I was just gonna say, all the character actors in this movie, you know, there's a few stars like Kurt Russell. You've seen Keith David in a lot of stuff, but like, there's some people you may recognize but aren't like too well known. But just like the dynamic between all these characters, like they built the tension so well. The way they interacted with each other, like, seemed natural. Like, they're getting so pissed off at each other, like, because they're in this really stressful scenario.
Who was who played Shades? The comms director, or was it Windows? What was his name?
Yeah, that was Windows.
You know what I'm saying? What else was he in? Here, scroll down. Click on Thomas Waits. Is that really him? Yeah, The Warriors. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Warriors,
yeah,
okay,
He
yeah.
was in The Warriors. Yeah.
That's hilarious. But yeah, going back to it, I really do like this movie. I don't know how many times I've seen it. I probably have seen it, 20 or 30 times, and every time it's on TV, I will watch it. I don't know how many people actually still probably appreciate this movie. Probably older generation. You're not going to see a lot of kids nowadays going to go watch that thing unless your parents are telling you about it or something like that. But yeah, it's one of those. If you're a John Carpenter fan, it's like a must see out of his like bucket of movies. You have to see this movie.
If you're a John Carpenter fan, you saw this.
Well, you never know. There's probably people out there that have seen only Halloween, don't know about his other movies.
I mean, minus Escape from New York, I'd say this is like his quintessential film.
Dude, he's done so much.
So much cool stuff. Like,
holy shit.
Yeah, the original Assault on Precinct 13 was him. Like,
and dude, I know people downplay this movie, but I fucking loved it. Vampires.
yeah, with James Woods.
James Woods.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
no, that
dude.
movie was good.
And was it Steven or Billy Baldwin?
I want to say William Baldwin was in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just, I don't know, man. It had that chintzy feel, but also like, it didn't. I don't know how to explain it. It seemed like a made-for-TV movie almost, but it was just like, but with like higher quality.
Well, so it's like he was always kind of like on the fringe of filmmaking. He was doing a lot of stuff on his own, right? So it's like same thing with like what we were talking about, Evil Dead. It kind of has that like you use the word chintzy, like it has that kind of feel, like it's kind of homemade. It doesn't have like the glitz and glam, but behind like a big studio production.
I mean, another movie, if you guys we haven't touched on it with John Carpenter, is Christine, the one, the car.
No way.
Yeah, I mean I remember my dad showing me that movie.
I feel like a fucking retard
Every
right
time
now.
that movie's
I didn't
on,
realize how
I watched that as well.
far John Carpenter's grasp reach. So
He's great,
okay,
man,
so
yeah.
look, dude, how many people do you think he's molested in his career?
Hopefully hundreds, if not thousands.
But yeah, he's. I mean, you talk about anybody who's
Holy shit, man.
the person that you want to look up to for watching horror flicks or movies. He's the guy you want to get into, like with anything. And it's crazy that he's still alive. Because he made, even in 2018 this year, they're talking about coming out with another Halloween movie with John Carpenter.
Okay.
So.
Who's the guy making Screams?
Wes Craven.
Wes Craven.
He makes some good stuff too.
Name him, because I've never been a big fan. I never liked the Screams.
I'm trying to think. I know
Because then
he's
that
done.
spawned that whole genre.
I know he's done something
I
that
know what
you
you did
probably
last
liked.
summer.
If we look him up real quick, I guarantee you there's a few. He has a few gems in there.
But yeah. I that's what I'm saying. Like the whole genre of
The Doy. Nightmare.
Yeah. Nightmare on Elm
Doy.
Street.
Dude, People Under the Stairs.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
that's
Yeah.
a great movie.
That was another scar for me. Like when I watched that as a kid,
But yeah,
like that stuck with
The
me.
Hills Have Eyes as well as in their fucked up movies, man. I think that movie is just crazy and disgusting. I hate that movie. But
There's more than eyes in them motherfucking hills.
just going back what we're talking about, like
That was, dude. That fucking mutant rape. Fuck that movie.
Yeah, that's depraved.
it's a weird movie, man. But I just want to get the point out is like horror as a genre itself, like we were spoiled when we were young, but nowadays, like the movies, I just don't really.
You wrote Swamp Thing,
Right, yeah.
I don't appreciate movies nowadays like I used to for horror. Like when a horror movie comes out and I see it's coming out in the middle of like, for some reason they always want to make them in December or like early like spring or something.
Because that's like dead time for movies.
It is,
usually.
and every movie they always make is like some filler shit horror movie, and it's like, how many times have we seen this movie done and acted, and it come to find out it's terrible. The only movie I've seen recently that was supposed to be like a horror movie was The Quiet Place. Everyone's been raving about, and I come to find out in the entire movie, they don't talk the entire movie, except like one or two parts, and it's cool, but it's not. It wasn't as great as everybody talks it up and like it's supposed to be, right? Like the people are raving like scariest movie they've seen since like Saw or something crazy.
Well, I heard John Krasinski was pushing to get deaf actors in the movie. I don't know if that was a successful campaign for him, but that's just something I heard.
Yeah.
About The Quiet Place.
It just, I feel like nowadays it's so hard to do like we talk about. It's just so hard to do a horror movie because everything's been done, and when you come out trying to make something new, it gets picked apart because of the way horror is just done and depicted.
And you know what? If I have one opinion on horror, it's like get away from the jump scares. Get away from the jump scares.
Yeah.
Get away from the CGI. Get away from all the ring bullshit.
Use
and
a
it's like,
concept to scare
literally,
me, right? Like
you
as
know,
opposed to like physical action.
Because have you guys seen the Babadook?
Yeah, I have seen that.
And that's one movie that I don't. I'm conflicted because it's like
I personally liked it.
I lean on the side of liking it, but there were some things I didn't like about it, but I mean compared to the movies or horror movies released around the time,
here's the
it
thing.
was good.
It was something different. It might not have been the most well executed movie of all time, but like they were going for something that like you really hadn't seen that concept before. It may have reused certain tropes, but for the most part, it was an original idea that they were putting out there, which is like more than you can say for most.
Yep.
So it's like I like it in that way.
All right, completely off topic. Have you guys seen The Others with Nicole Kidman?
I love that movie actually.
That is one of my all-time favorites.
I haven't seen it in a long, long time.
But you want back to good twists?
Yeah,
Holy,
great twist.
yeah.
Holy schmoly!
I mean, even though it's still in the realm of like what we're talking about, like with movies. It just sucks.
Isolation.
It just depresses me nowadays with movies that we just don't have anything creative that comes out for horror movies. It really bums me out.
But that's part of the bigger problem in Hollywood right now. I feel like there's a creation issue, or like a creativity issue.
Well, if we're going down that road on that topic, you're right, because if it's not superhero based, pretty much right now, then it's
our
not.
tentpole, our franchise worthy. It's
Right.
just like they're selling products now, and it's like Randy, we had this conversation a little bit ago about popular music nowadays. Whereas like when we were growing up, even like what was that 15 20 years ago, no, like
Say
10
15.
10
Say
15
15's about
15
right.
It was just like The Point played alternative music, Z1077 played pop. You listen to both those stations now, their songs will play on both of those fucking stations.
Or turn on a country station and it sounds almost something like they
country
play
pop.
on The Point
Well, yeah,
or
yeah.
on Z107. Yeah.
It's all blooded. It's all
it's-
bleeding in the same type of music.
Well,
right?
selling products nowadays is the issue. to
That's
me.
the biggest problem.
It's less about the creativity, and yeah, it's about selling goddamn
Well,
products.
it's such big business now. It's like it's really risky for a movie studio to shell out $200 million for something that may or may not hit
But
with audiences. You know?
Have you heard of Hollywood accounting?
No.
Do you know what that is?
I've never heard of that.
Look into Hollywood accounting. It's how they can, even though like a movie released worldwide that makes billions of
Is that-
dollars, they can still report losses on
It's
it.
a slush fund, probably of money that they.
It kind of, yeah.
You got
Look
it.
look into it.
Yeah,
It's
I've
dirty.
heard of that sort of thing. I've just never heard that
It's
specific
called
term.
Hollywood accounting.
Okay.
And that's how they fuck people out of contracts and shit.
But that's the problem nowadays, though. Like you're saying, they're selling a product and doing stuff, which is why they're doing so many remakes of movies, right? We've seen. I can name probably in the last 5 years how many remakes they've done of movies like Point Break, and now they're redoing Overboard and all those
Oh,
movies.
dude, like
they're
between Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
there's two Spider-Man series in the same decade,
Like you
or
can't
within
redo
a decade
Point
of each
Break.
other.
You can't redo that movie, dude. Like it's just one of those movies you can't do. Like to me, some of these movies you just can't touch and remake unless you do something that's
because
better.
it's like look at what Point Break was. That was character acting between Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze
and Gary Busey,
and Gary Busey before he went crazy.
right?
It's like you'll never recapture that spark that they had acting.
Right.
No,
And
and
it's
those are
just like-
iconic actors that we grew up with. They don't have those type of. I feel like we were spoiled too.
Even if we didn't grow up with them, dude, those are iconic. Those are some iconic actors. It's like go back. You don't even have to go back and watch it, dude. But Streetcar Named Desire, you go fucking just Stella, fucking Marlon Brando. It doesn't. There's things that are gonna stand the test of time.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
But I feel like too, and this is I'm going to go down this rabbit hole anyway too, and get in the weeds about it. Is I feel like in the era of growing up, we had really amazing actors and people. And maybe I'm being biased, or maybe I'm not, but I feel like the amount of people that come out of Hollywood now are just shit. And maybe I just think that's because I don't appreciate some of these actors coming out nowadays. But I feel like the way they do acting and actors nowadays, before you guys, retort on what I'm saying, is like, if you're a singer, you can now act in Hollywood. And if you can act in Hollywood, you can now sing. And if you're famous, we're putting you in a movie because it puts butts in seats. And it's like, it doesn't fucking work that way.
Oh, no, and then, you're going to get a clothing brand.
And I feel like,
Right.
exactly, and I feel like it's ruined Hollywood in that sense. Like, don't get me wrong.
Absolutely ruined.
There's only a couple of people I can name off the top of my hands. Like Justin Timberlake, he's an actually good actor and a good singer. The Rock,
The
Rock,
guy can goddamn dance his ass off.
right? And The Rock, he can actually entertain people and he can act. And everybody knows.
I would love.
He's
dude, I would love
legitimately funny.
I would
The
love to
Rock.
take this opportunity to hate on The Rock, but I can't.
But
But it's
sorry,
like,
but
think
I'm-
of his background, wrestling. That's all showmanship.
Right.
So like,
But then there's people like Kevin Hart, and I'm sorry, I'm going on this road. I don't care. Kevin Hart is not funny, right? He's not a good actor.
I don't even like his stand-ups that
And his
much.
stand-up is terrible. And I know a lot of people are going to hate on me and say whatever, and maybe they're probably thinking, like, you just don't understand, like, his sense of humor. But I'm sorry. I can name 30 comedian actors that will blow him out of the water and stand up any day of the week. I think people just look for somebody to throw in the spotlight nowadays that are funny that will take that role and just run with it. And I think that's why he's as big as he is nowadays.
Right. It's not necessarily his true merit. It's just like he's the most sellable
it's the
at
hottest
this point.
flavor
Yeah.
of town.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm
Back to selling products.
saying? Right, that's what I'm saying.
It's a package. It's like,
Well-
Dave Chappelle. Seriously, it's like, look at Dave Chappelle left a void in black comedy. Let's be honest, and it's just like that was filled on Comedy Central by Key and Peele, but. Like, I feel maybe I haven't branched out enough or seen enough people, but it's
No,
just
it's the
like
truth.
as far as the stand-up goes, he left a void, man, and it was just like, and Chris Rock hadn't did anything until recently on Netflix,
Right.
which I listened to that and it kind of sucked.
It wasn't as good as the original.
and it's very preachy.
I guess I'm biased in that way too. Even though some of the new Dave Chappelle wasn't his best, I still love it.
It was still fantastic
It was.
because
He's
even
changed
even,
a lot as a man
but,
too.
Yeah.
But even him, like, giving, I would say, like, on some of those, I don't even think he was giving 100% anymore.
Well, he kind of doesn't give a
to.
fuck.
He does, yeah.
He's very
Even at-
jaded
but
based
even at-
on his experience.
But even a Dave at 50 is better than a Kevin Hart at 110.
Right.
Like, because,
Well-
I mean, it's just like, literally, it's just, that's how I look at it. It's like, Kevin Hart is just a product to sell to everybody because he's, I don't know, the new face of black stand-up comedy, and it's just a goddamn shame because I'm sure there's so many more funny people out there that would kill it, but I don't know, for whatever reason they pick Kevin Hart.
It's 'cause
I
he's-
hate his sporadic, quick, like I mean, if I try to pin it down, it's just like I don't like his fast talking.
He's like
I've
wacky.
never really,
Whoa,
yeah.
hey, whoa,
It's
you know,
almost I
whoa.
relate it back to almost like, you remember the kids in school who were like, oh, like I'm going out of my way to be random.
Yeah.
Like you're trying too hard. Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean,
trying too hard.
a funny point is, like, before I left work last week, someone was like, yeah, I'm going to see Kevin Hart, and I was like, sorry, he's not funny, and like, have fun. But I'm like, he's not funny. She's like, oh, he's hilarious or whatever. And it's like, sorry, no, he's not. Like, give me an example of like one show he's funny, and she couldn't say anything. And it's like, no, he's just funny because that's what people always say about him, right? Which is fine, you know, to each their own or whatever that word is that people say. It's like, if you enjoy it, whatever, I can't really hate on them, right? Some people
But
find
if you're bringing it
entertaining.
up, you're soliciting an opinion.
Right, but
I'll give an opinion.
right, I'm giving an
Right.
opinion
But-
on it. But back to my point is, I can name, like, probably from the 80s till early 2000s, many great actors. And now from 2000, let's say 14 to like 18, I can literally name 0 actors that after like they do one iconic movie or big movie that they do anything great after that wasn't growing up with us.
Dude, they're killing the whole industry for character actors, I feel like the people that it's just like the unsung heroes of Hollywood. It's like the people that like I mean, it used to be like the Forrest Whitakers. He's gotten to be a bigger name now, but it's like
Right.
people like that is just like you would slip in and they leave a big impact, big impression, and great but they used to fill like every role in a movie with people like that leave an impression, and now it's just like
I don't feel
you've
like
got
I don't feel like it happens anymore.
You see a lot of shit casts nowadays.
Yeah, you got your big name, you pay your money, you pay your top dollars for your big names, and then you fucking skimp out on the rest.
Well,
of
it's
them.
like I didn't see the movie, but like Tom Cruise in The Mummy last summer.
It died. It was a terrible. Movie.
It's like you're trying to just use Tom Cruise's name, but like who do you have
Cruise-
supporting him? It's
If Tom Cruise was in Mission Impossible and you threw that name out there because he's done Mission Impossible, it's going to sell. But if you put him, like you just said, in The Mummy, it's not going to sell. Like the original one, Brandon Fraser was actually pretty good. Now, a lot of people hate Brandon Fraser, but the movie was good. The original
it's
was
unfair.
Good.
And The Mummy, the original Mummy with Brandon Fraser, is a fantastic fucking movie.
It is. It was a great movie at the time when
Just
it came
a
out.
fun
An action
movie.
adventure,
Yeah.
a classic action adventure.
It really, like, just the whole point of nowadays with, like you said, with music and movies, it really drives me insane that
It's all about money.
It's all about money. They don't care about talent anymore. They care about what sells, right? And if you are the new transgender, amazing actress or whatever, they'll put you in just because that's what is, popular right now. That's what
Right.
people want to see, right? They do it in TV shows, movies, anything nowadays. Not to hate on transgender people or nothing. I'm just saying the simple fact that whatever's popular at the moment, that's what they're going to put in there, regardless.
It's less based on merit and more so like on your marketability at that time. You're only as good as your last,
Right.
whatever.
I would like to just bring up, and then this is my closing point. Amy Schumer. When I first saw her stand up when she was, still on the lower end of things, laughed my fucking ass
Like when she
off.
was doing getting known from the roast, around that time.
Before that,
Even before
just
that?
her
Okay.
her first stand up I ever saw. Dude, I
Oh.
laughed my fucking
All right,
ass
great
off.
point, because I want to bring this up. Amy Schumer, the original stuff, I thought she was okay.
I thought it was refreshing, and I hate to put it in. I hate to separate it by men, women, black and white, but it's just I don't know. That's just kind of how I do think of stand-ups, and if I'm wrong about
Back
that,
to my
that's me. But it's just as far as women comedy is concerned, I thought she reinvigorated it with with her early stuff.
She did, and she was good at her original stuff. And back to my point, though, she's a prime example of someone who came in, who was a great hit comedy. All women loved her, and I agree, she was funny with the original stuff. They put her in movies. She fucking sucks. I'm sorry, but in movies, just because you're a comedian doesn't mean you're going to be a great actor comedian. And I fucking hate her when she acts in movies. And she just came out with the movie recently, and I will tell you right now, I guarantee it's a flop. I can't remember the damn movie. It's coming out here in a month or
It's called I Feel Pretty or something like that. Yeah, I was just reading something about it.
Like she went in a movie with John Cena not too long ago too. I think she was one with. That's another person that shouldn't be acting as John Cena.
I think that's Trainwreck that John Cena was in.
Yeah,
with her.
whatever. Terrible movie, man. Literally, who thinks that putting these people in here is going to be a great idea? I think they just because of a couple of times movies being successful, I think that's what happens and stuff. But I guess you guys kind of get the point. I just feel like it's regurgitated shit that just keeps coming out of Hollywood.
Yeah, we're hammering the point home now.
The horse is beat.
The horse has been beaten. The dead horse has been beaten a few times.
But I will say I like this topic. I'm glad we talked about it. I would like to see hopefully some new horror movies coming out this year, and maybe that Halloween is going to be good with John Carpenter. I can't really say because it's just whatever. I think all his movies are good, maybe because I'm just biased. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I don't know. Is any last thoughts on what you guys think about horror coming out this year in the future, or what's going to happen, or anything?
I just think they need to be more inventive with it. One I saw recently, this has been a couple years ago now, was Crimson Peak, directed by Guillermo del Toro.
Was that good?
That was actually good. It was like a haunted house story.
Chastain was in that, right?
She was, yes.
I love her.
Yeah, definitely. And that was more so it was driven by story. And I know I've harped on that a few times during this cast, but I think that's the future. For me, at least, to make it interesting for me, there needs to be interesting characters doing something interesting. Not just we're in a spooky place, shit jumps out here, guy gets stabbed there, whatever. You need to be more inventive and entertain me. That's my final thought on it.
My final thought is, if I was in like a theme park ride, like in the ride I'm on is like one of those like cart things or whatever, and you need to shoot things with lasers.
Yeah, Scooby Doo Adventures.
Yeah,
Six
Scooby Doo
Flags.
Adventures and shit's popping out, and it's
Yeah.
just like that is the appropriate place for jump scares, not movies.
Right.
I'm sorry, but
if that's all you got
scares,
to scare me, that's,
right?
It's weak. You're not trying.
I get it. It should be more driven toward kids because when you're a kid, you haven't experienced jump scares, so it's more appropriate when you're a kid. For example, like you get more excited when that kind of stuff happens and more.
Dude, okay,
out
so
of
like
it.
Eddie Murphy in the Haunted Mansion, some shit like that, dude. Yeah, targeted towards kids, jump scares out the ass.
That's what
by
I mean.
all means. But
Kids can what's it called? Can attest that because they've never, like I said, they've never experienced it before. First time that happened, it's great, whatever. But after multiple times, it doesn't scare you anymore, right?
I don't want to completely knock jump scares. If it makes sense with the story, go ahead and throw one or two in. But it's like if your whole horror movie is relying on that, you have a problem because I agree with Matt. It should be story driven.
It should. I feel like it should be story driven.
And it should be a creepy fucking story.
It should be creepy. And it should make you like emotionally like get freaked out in your head, like something's gonna happen, and like, man, this could
and
happen
the
to
whole
me.
time you're watching, you're just like kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, if you have a visceral response to it, like, oh, I have a sick feeling in my gut, like a anxiety from
or
watching
like an edge of your
this,
seat type feel.
they're doing their job right, and that's what for me, like, quantifies a good horror movie.
I would agree 100%.
Yep.
And I feel like it hasn't happened with me in years, to be honest.
It's very few and far between. They just they put out a lot of trash end of the day.
Trash in, trash out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
So I think that's going to wrap up this podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed our topic this week on Remade.
And if you didn't, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, that too. Next
All 8 of you.
next podcast, we will be coming out with some other cool topics around movies. So stay tuned.
Or we won't. I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll keep you on your feet.
Subscribe and smash
Jump
that like
scare ya.
button, and we'll see you guys next time.
Smash it. Absolutely smash it.